All set?
Got my iPad.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of McCandless Planning Commission meeting for March 5, 2024.
I should do mine.
Looks like we have two items on the agenda. Item number one is the Blazer Drive subdivision number 5, the McCandless Square Phase 3 application. Do we have a presentation for that application? Hi, state your name and whatever else we need to know about you.
Where do I begin? My name's Jerry Klodowski with Civil Environmental Consultants, and I also have John Kamen here, who is the attorney for the applicant. There's really nothing to present what it is. We've come through back in, I guess it was 2022 with this revised master plan for this project. We removed the single office building and replaced with some townhomes. Now we're at the point where, construction for some of the infrastructure is already done pursuant to all of that land development plan. And now we're coming in and we're subdividing the property to allow the construction of these blocks of townhome buildings. It's typically what is done. You divide it up into larger sections. And then as they start to build, party walls come up, they resurvey and subdivide each individual unit off. So that's really what this is. It's the first step of the subdivision of the entire parcel. It was subject to, like I said, a revised master plan. So everything internal of the site, we have some leeway with setbacks and things like that. Perimeter setbacks are maintained, perimeter buffer yards are maintained. Inside setbacks are limited to 15 feet between separated buildings and 10 feet from the curb line for our structure. So, and the plan is in compliance with all those criteria.
And I did just want to mention in response to the review letter, there is a reciprocal access agreement that's recorded across the entire site. As you know, we have different land uses on that site. So there's a reciprocal access agreement that gives everybody cross access and rights to the various pieces. I know that was a question raised. So. Happy to answer any questions that you may have on the subdivision. As Jerry said, this is the first. Once we get the townhomes up and the party walls built, we'll be back in to re-subdivide so those can be sold off.
I don't know how long it's been, but I've already forgotten since the last time you folks were here. Are there more townhomes now and fewer office buildings? Is that the combination? No.
They took the office buildings out entirely.
Correct.
I'm saying that again.
The office buildings were replaced with the townhomes.
The townhomes that are currently there
They're to be built.
To be built.
to be built. That's what, okay.
It has been a while.
Did I miss that? There are no office buildings in this.
We did that as a master plan amendment. That would have been, I want to say maybe beginning of 23.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
have to
before I
double
was
check.
there.
I was gonna say maybe 22.
Yeah.
It could have been 22.
It was right after I joined.
Yeah.
So it was
Before me.
Yeah.
Well, I must have had a rough night.
The
So
beginning of 23.
there was going to be a brewery pub. There's going to be a,
That's.
That's
oh,
Yeah.
It's the
This is
retail
actually-
section.
To the left of all of that.
okay,
Yeah.
So it's to the left of the senior living, to the left of the brew house.
And yes,
okay.
it
Then I
was-
misunderstood. When you said office building, I was thinking retail and other things like
No,
that.
that's still there.
Okay, the retail is still there.
Mhm.
That was my mistake. I thought that's what you were saying was no longer there, and I thought that,
This is phase 3. So
Okay.
phase 1 is already built. Phase 2 is commercial. Phase 3 was going to be office flex. Now it is this.
okay.
So you have an entirely new roadway that was not on the approved master plan.
No, it is all the roadways that were on the approved master plan. We did remove a rear driveway. It wasn't necessary, but the layout of the buildings and the other roadways stayed the same.
I think I have this oriented now.
So Hopkins, where's Hopkins Street on this
I
plan?
can't figure out.
Because there's a Hopkins Street that looks like it goes through lots 7 and 4. If I'm looking, when I drove through this, I could drive through Cooper.
Yep.
And it looks like there's the parking lot.
Right.
And there's a Hopkins Street
No, right in the back there. So that one you're pointing at, and we actually removed that because that was a comment on the engineer's
Is this what you were
report.
talking about?
That
Yeah.
roadway right there
This
was
is-
temporary for fire access while the site was being developed. It was just a temporary road that came out. So the new road will loop around.
I can't figure out where the new road,
This is better.
Yeah,
how these
we
houses
don't
get out
have
into,
Right here. So this is Blazer Drive.
So this now aligns. with
This is Cooper Street.
yeah,
Okay, the senior living is right here.
yeah,
That temporary driveway you saw
it
was
goes through
here,
there, right?
but the new roadway is gonna come down this way.
Right, so it disappears.
Yeah, that temporary one.
And
We,
that line.
the only
What
reason we
lots
put
of
that in was so that
people on
fire
that
trucks that
figure
go out
out
behind here
So.
would still get out.
Right
Where-
now,
Where's that show here? On Coop- Where's that road show?
so it's from here to here, there's one lot here, and that's just one big. That's here. They
So
are.
this is,
definitely
this is
process right
Cooper.
shown.
Office.
Basically
This.
this square.
This is Hopkins now,
yes.
Oh, okay.
So like this
And
is
Hopkins
one lot.
goes down to the back of the facility and then goes back out all the way behind.
Each
Yep.
of these will have,
Okay.
this is not an actual.
Yeah, it all loops together.
Okay, and then one that's, once they have laid out the mutations, they come back. And they
It's,
set
it aligns
further,
with master
so that
What
this is
about
not-
stormwater
and all that?
Yeah,
So
the road to the lot.
What conversation's going on? What are we talking about here? If, raise
we're
your
covering-
questions if you
Yeah,
have
we're
them.
covering the road down here. I think the same thing that was going on over there, the temporary access road, which
Okay.
they said they removed. Yeah, so
Okay.
I was getting her up to speed on that.
Do you have issues?
No, from what I've seen, all of our comments, can be addressed, and I know they had resubmitted an updated plan. I did not get a chance to look at it yet, but all of the comments can be addressed within the plan and no technical changes would be required. Yeah, we just got the revisions in this afternoon. But I mean, again, most of these are not highly technical comments, you know, we could have gotten it in.
When were the
tomorrow.
revisions due?
We didn't give them, there's no due date. This is the first time they've.
In the future, can we get things before the afternoon of the meeting,
Yes.
Dan,
please?
so this is their first time before the planning commission. They're not even on a revision cycle yet.
I'm just
They-
asking for my benefit.
Right,
Yes.
no problem.
Thank you.
They did not have a review letter from Gateway until last week because
Okay.
this was the first time we took a look at the plan at all. So
Okay,
unlike some applicants,
Hmm.
they did not send this in at the last minute when they had a month to work.
okay.
So can I ask, what is gonna be on lot 2 and 3 now? I see where the parking is, I see where the townhouse is. Or- Huh?
Those are also.
Is that where, is that where the townhomes that we already approved at the last?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
So those, when we put the houses up, we'll come back in to have those subdivided along the parcels.
Okay,
So the locations on the master plan, the lots that they do have shown, we did confirm that there are townhomes proposed within those lots. Obviously, since they're not built, you can't see them on here yet, but when they come back through and show the party lines, we'll be able to orient the buildings on these lots.
Not having been here for the master plan. And this tells me absolutely nothing. So if there's a way, when you come back in, you could orient it and perhaps give some sort of a document. I don't have the master plan, so
Sure.
I appreciate the fact that Kelly's gone through it, but it would help us to understand better where things have been built, where they haven't been built, and exactly what you're looking for.
That's something I can just email tomorrow. and maybe distribute it.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
for their reference.
I could pull the plan up now.
That's fine. When we come back.
Yeah,
in-
just send it to us. That's fine.
Yeah,
When we come back in for the next round, we'll show.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting is for the next round.
yeah, okay.
are we talking about the same number of townhomes on this as we did approve on the master?
Yes,
Okay.
this is just to chop up.
Okay,
The-
so
the
the
existing-
parking that issue that we had in the first go around, that's not valid because we've addressed that. Okay, all right.
This is not unlike the, I forget the name of the plan.
Walnut.
Walnut.
Yeah.
Where it kept coming back because they built the townhomes, they needed to come back in order to specifically survey out the townhomes
Right.
where they were built.
And this is how they did it. I mean, I wasn't here when we did the original Walnut Court plan, but
from my understanding, either at the time of the original, big land development application or shortly thereafter, they did a chop up of that piece of property. Similar to this,
Yeah.
where they subdivided each chunk that was going to be, per one building. And then I have been here for the,
Yeah.
subdivision number 1, 2, 3, whatever. Those are the ones where they chop up at the party
That's the one
walls.
off Ingemar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the
Yep.
stage that I think most of us, maybe a couple, but at least I was not there for one. This.
I had one question. So I understand that the lots that are shown are gonna be further subdivided. Parcel A, is that gonna be dedicated to a homeowners association, or is that, it's gonna be, is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay. And they'll be responsible for all maintenance.
They're responsible for all the maintenance, and then there's actually a master association, which this homeowners association will pay into for the sidewalk.
Okay.
Any other comments? Kelly Ann?
I just need to be oriented, sorry.
Okay. So it seems to have been pretty straightforward. We're looking for a motion to recommend the town council approve. Is there any public comment? Resounding. All right, so we'll be looking for a motion to recommend the town council approve the Blazer Drive subdivision number 5 application.
So
Okay.
moved.
Shelley moved,
I'll
second,
second.
second from Al. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
We'll see you soon.
March 25th is the town council meeting that we could put you guys on, assuming that we have the county letter back, because sometimes they. Right, so if we don't get it back from the county in advance of that meeting, we'll bump you to the fourth Monday in April, but hopefully that's not an issue.
Thank you.
Second Monday. Fourth Monday.
Well, because we do.
Yeah,
Right.
All right, item number 2 is Brown's Towing and Repair, conditional use application. Do we have someone who wants to make a presentation for Brown's Towing? State your name and tell us about yourself.
My name is Joseph Brown. I own Brown's Towing.
Okay,
I mean, I have 5 locations. We run 20,000 calls a month. I have 100 trucks. Not sure what all you need.
How many trucks are you proposing for this site?
12.
12?
We right now, just in this area, we run 3,500 calls a month
out of this site,
out of this site.
will,
3,500 a month,
Yes,
Wait, say it again.
100 a day?
at least.
Okay.
There's like Monday, we ran 250. Yeah, today they were busy. It'll get slow. Probably next week it'll slow down here. It'll stay slow till spring. But I mean, we cover,
Why is this a busy time? What's,
it's just once it gets nice.
I'm sorry?
Once it gets nice,
No,
travel. If it's busy, you're busy.
okay.
If the roads are busy, we're busy.
So
Before we launch, do you want to do the oral report?
Sure.
Yeah.
I-
Okay, sorry. Didn't want us to go too far down the path, so, okay. I think for most of us here, this is one of the first, if not the first conditional use application that we've had before the commission, so just to kind of frame a couple things here. We have the gentleman representing Brown's Towing here to answer any questions, give any sort of presentation as appropriate. This has been slotted in under the warehouse distribution use category in our new zoning code. One of the typical uses, because there's a list of quite a few of them. One of those typical uses is tow and county. So that's why we're having this conditional use hearing. This is in the MC mixed use corridor district. This is the one district that you can have a warehouse distribution use in. From what I understand, there are no alterations being done to the
None
building, you
whatsoever.
look to just move in. This particular use has no specific use criteria beyond what is present in the base district, so there's not like a special setback or use regulations specific to warehouse and distribution. However, there are the criteria that we have for any conditional use application. And those are the ones that are contained in 1301.250 of our code. So things that we're probably going to be discussing tonight, as part of the conditional use review is, overall fit with neighborhood, generally capable of meeting the saldo requirements, so buffering, screening, won't result or significantly add to a traffic hazard, compliant with all other state and federal laws. There's quite a few criteria in here that I think you all either had in your packet or, it's readily available to take a look at in the zoning ordinance. Again, there's no building construction proposed for this site, so in terms of like stormwater, we don't need to go over that today because it's all pavement anyway. It really can't get more impervious, but also they're not changing the building footprint. So I'm supposed to give an oral report to let you know what is and isn't compliant about the application. And like I said, no particular specific use criteria as part of this use, but I turn it over to the commission for all of you to review and ask questions regarding the general conditional use criteria.
There was a non-compliance, was there not, in the tank?
That, from what I understand, that was removed.
Yeah, 'cause that was
the fuel-
Meltzer.
Huh?
That was Meltzer. Meltzer Fuel.
Yeah, so. is
Yeah,
it-
they're the ones that didn't get compliant. So we had them pull it.
Okay, so it's
'Cause
not
they
your
were
site.
supposed.
It's your
no,
site.
Yeah, so.
But what I'm saying is when we have a contract with them. On our contract, that when they bring a tank to our site, they have to be compliant with everybody, with everything. It's in our contract with them that they have to be compliant. When I got the call, we called them. They said that their rep says, well, he should have took care of it. I said, well, if he didn't take care, you need to pull the tank.
Yeah.
So they came and pulled the tank.
Okay, so it's gone. I mean, that's
Yes.
what we needed to know from that. 'cause
And then
it's-
they should be figuring out if they could be compliant or not.
Yeah, we don't allow above ground storage of fuel that is for purposes other than heating or energy supply. So
No tank.
no tank in short, but to your point of whether there is a compliance issue, the tank has been removed. So
Yes,
that
they
is,
removed it 2 days after.
yeah, so that's been resolved.
Cause like there's a lot of like Erie, we deal with Erie. I mean, they have a lot of stipulations on a lot of them, like Erie's tank. Can only be 1,000 gallons, gotta be a triple wall. I mean, they have a lot of, everybody has different, that's why they have to do it, not me.
Mm.
Cause I would know nothing about. A tank, my only obligation when we have a tank is we have to have everything to contain a spill. Like we have to carry the pig mats, we gotta carry the ropes, we gotta carry the rolls. So if there ever was a spill. We have to be able to take care of it. But we carry them anyway, because of wrecks.
Mhm.
We always, we have to clean up wrecks, so we already carry all that stuff.
But isn't your responsibility to make sure that the township is informed or you have discussions with the township before a tank is installed? To make sure that all the permitting or requirements are met?
I have 9 locations total. Never once have I had to deal with anything about putting a tank in. So I wouldn't know that. When we got contract with them. They're in their contract, they were responsible for anything that has to do with that. So is it an assumption that I probably should have looked in? Probably. But I've never had a problem. I mean. They put it in Erie, we have tanks in Washington. We got tanks in Fairview, we got tanks in Greenville, and they've been compliant with every one of them. So never would I have thought they'd not be compliant here.
And are
And
those
it's a
locations,
multi-billion-dollar company.
mixed corridor locations like this? one?
They're what?
Are they similar locations like this one is?
Mr. Brown, could you please explain how you propose to operate at the site?
How we operate it?
What you're proposing to operate at the site? What are you using the site?
Just describe your
A
business.
parking lot
A parking lot.
for our trucks.
Mr.
Here's
Brown,
what it is, a lot of our calls are, people broke down. They're broke down. We go pick them up, we tow them to the garage they need to go to. The police will call us and they'll call us for a wreck. We pull a wreck in there, it sits for the one day. And then we pull it out of there.
So you will also be having disabled vehicles on the lot.
Yes, but they don't stay.
Why not?
We haul them to our yard,
Where's that?
Greenville. Or we'll take them to Elwood City.
So at any given time, there could be any number of
12.
wrecked vehicles on the lot, and I bring to the commission's attention that we already have what I consider an eyesore at the corner of Ingomar and Perry Highway, which is exactly, now that's also a repair business, but I think they do towing as well.
Towing in wreck cars.
And it's an eyesore. It's really, are you planning, I think what you're saying is that you're not planning on doing, you have a parking lot, it's mostly all hard surface already. And you just want to get approval to both park your tow trucks and be able to bring in wrecked vehicles.
If
That-
the wrecks are a stipulation.
But if-
I'm in.
Given what you said was how busy you are. Every day, there could be 12 wrecked vehicles sitting there. Well, it could be.
We get called, and if there's 12 wrecks, then that means the tow companies you have aren't doing their job.
But the potential,
There's two right
regardless,
there.
you could, what you're
How much is
asking,
it for?
could allow that to happen on a daily basis. And I think it's kind of an eyesore, but yet you're not proposing to do anything that might, make this property more suitable. I don't know, any buffering or anything.
I believe there's a buffering requirement that we can talk about.
But if you have 100,
But RJ may want to address
Well,
that.
Yeah, so it's
Yes and no.
the width of
think there is.
the buffer yard, like the tree trench, basically. On the corner on the side that faces the residence is really deep, actually. It's deeper than I thought it was from Google Images, but I had our code enforcement officer go out and measure it, and it is 30 feet. However.
It's not planted.
However, the plantings may be too sparse for what would be required for what is, in our code, essentially an industrial use. Abutting a residential use, so that's something that needs to be looked at.
I mean, I can do whatever you guys ask me to do. That's not a problem.
I'm thinking more about, Perry Highway is an area that I think the town has identified as an area we'd like to see. There's been some nice new development along Perry Highway, and we'd like to see it, the aesthetics not be wrecked vehicles in visible to the public driving along that route. That's my opinion.
I mean, MC is definitely the most intense district in terms of the commercial uses that it allows. However, what was there before, I believe,
Automotive.
with the car was a showroom, a used car business. So that's a little bit of a different character necessarily than disabled vehicles.
well,
But that's why this is a conditional use. So, we can have these conversations about like what's appropriate to fit in with the.
if you're
character
doing
of the
100
area.
cars a day,
We don't tow them to us though.
Pardon me?
We don't tow them to us. We tow them for AAA, Allstate, Ajero, State Farm, Erie and Son,
but you're making 100 trips a day, correct?
out of where?
You're talking about this location, having,
No. They come in, okay, our guys come in, they get a truck, they leave. They go find a place to go. They get to their first call, they stay there. After they drop their call, they go find a place and they just stay. They'll go get a drink, go get something to eat. And then they'll get the next call, they go on to the next call. They don't drive back to the shop.
So it's not like a fire house that they're
No,
coming back.
They don't come back to. We cover. The map would be like. The other side of the street is actually Elite. Tony. We cover this side of the street. And then we go all the way across to Fox Chapel. We go all the way up to Gibsonia. All the way down to Etna. We cover that whole area. So once our guys leave, they get to an area, they stay in that area.
So,
The only calls we actually ever bring in there are when the cops call and they need help. As for the cops, we don't have a contract with them. They call us when they need help, because we answer our phones. It's when they call 5 other companies, they can't get a hold of them, then they call us and, hey, can you go grab this car for us? On midnight turn and nighttime and afternoon turn, you have less guys. So they drag them in there. Our guys come in the morning, they load them up, they haul them out.
so are you dispatching from this site or you
No.
have a central dispatch
We have
location?
a central dispatch in Greenville.
So the building itself is not gonna be utilized? You're
No, they
gonna-
have batteries in there, they have like their charging ports.
These are for the vehicles
jack.
that you are
Yeah,
going
no,
to,
these are for their vehicles, like lockout kits. They unlock the cars, they change flat tires. They'll come out, put your spare on.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. What your trucks are taking to a disabled
Yes,
vehicle,
yes.
that material is
Yes.
stored in the building.
Yes, like jacks go, they break all the time. They gotta have stuff to replace it in their vehicles, and they come in the morning, they check their truck, make sure everything's in it, they grab their jump boxes and they go on their way, and make sure their batteries for their impacts are charged, and they're in and out there.
So from, if you can give us an idea, you're saying that the trucks are out and about. Are you suggesting that 12 vehicles would be there during certain hours of the evening
At
or,
night,
and,
that's usually when the most vehicles are parked there, and a lot of them don't go there. Like we run the reason I say 12 is there could be like, when you guys get snow down here, we have that many vehicles. We'll bring them from Greenville, we'll bring them up from Washington. And like Greenville, we have 60 trucks out of our Greenville location. And then what we do is whenever somebody gets busy, like when the weather gets bad here, we'll send guys from Greenville just to work here. Or guys up from Washington to work here. And then like, we move them out of here too. Like Hermitage, you guys won't get snow. Hermitage, we have a place in Hermitage. We'll pull our guys out of here to go to Hermitage to help them guys. It's wherever they're busy at. The reason I say 12 is that was the most trucks I had down here at one time. And that's when you guys had really cold weather and snow.
and how on the site, I mean, we don't have a plan, so how on the site do you park the vehicles? When I drove by, a few times I've driven by, they've been parallel to the front of the building.
Usually try to park them parallel. Cause then it's just easier to get out either way without blocking everybody in.
So you're looking at rows of vehicles in front of the building on the street side.
It's usually on the north side. It's where they park up against the curb. And it's actually usually at an angle, and then they'll park on the south
side of
side
the building.
straight in.
But on the side of the building, towards near the commercial building, they're parking there. correct?
Yes. Yeah, though, if you're looking at the building on the left side, they'll all park at an angle.
Mhm.
Because then they can just all pull in and pull out. And on the right side, they back straight in. And the reason that is because of the house to the right side, if you're looking at the building. Because then if they ever pull in, he's not actually blinding them with headlights
The house across the road.
across the road where the
Hillview.
shrubs are.
Yeah.
They're backing in from 19.
No, they pull in lower.
They do a
And the
K.
reason they pull in the lower drive and come around, and then when they back in, this way the lights don't shine to the neighbor's house. Cause when we first talked to him, he said he didn't care. He says 8 o'clock, he's watching TV. He says that the lights, if they come in the top drive, they shine in his house. So we talked to him and we moved it in the next night. We come in the lower drive and he said, he don't care, you don't ever see it.
So when the truck drivers basically park their car where their truck is in the day when they're out,
Yes.
or?
Yeah.
So I mean, anytime
Yeah,
I've gone
yeah.
by, there've been trucks and cars on the Perry Highway side of the building, right in front
In front
of the building towards the street. Which the concern I have is the school buses and the kids that are going up Hillview if there's any kind of a clear vision issue with how the vehicles are being parked. And I don't know, because there's not a plan.
So RJ, I'm a bit confused. So what Mr. Brown describes is, thoughtfully, but how you've been operating your business here. And he's already doing what it appears that it is coming before this commission to approve. So how did this come about?
Yeah, surprise.
We came back in before June of last year. Is when we came in there.
But there was no application made for a
We
commercial
understand that.
occupancy permit. So if somebody, for example, calls us and says, can I do this business here? Which, I'm assuming somebody took the call before we passed our new zoning code last year, and it wasn't me, but it's. I have to assume the correct information at that time was given, which is that it was a permitted use on that property at the time. However, to establish grandfathering, if that were the case, that this would have qualified to be grandfathered in and not need to go through a conditional use process, we need a commercial occupancy, a zoning certificate of
valid.
use. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is dated prior to the adoption of a new ordinance. And of course, I know that you know this already because we talked with you, but point being, we were not aware that they had actually opened the business until we heard from a couple of people, hey, we noticed something
Without the
going on there.
correct,
Huh?
without the correct permit?
Right, so, at that point, of course, you reach out and you say, hey, we need to, like, what are you doing down here? You need to get your occupancy. And when it was described, what the business was, we took a look, at the use chart and said this is conditional use to come before planning commission and town council.
I have two other questions under the requirements for conditional use. On page 14 of that, it says one of the issues went away, will not create a significant public safety hazard, but we had the tank removed, so that went away, but will not negatively affect desirable character of an existing residential neighborhood and in a way, or will not alter the established character and use of the neighborhood or district which is located. And I'm concerned this does not meet those two. You have a fairly nice commercial building behind it. Speaking of that, the lot that people park their cars in behind the building,
Yeah,
whose lot is that?
beside us,
Pardon me?
the lot beside us.
No, the one behind there where there's parked cars right behind the building.
It's the one beside us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a.
It's all connected.
Yeah,
Yeah, L-shaped lot.
Yeah,
Was.
Owned by the property beside you.
Yeah.
beside, okay. And you have a fairly nice commercial building to the going north next to you. Westview Bank across the street, and that residential, that row of residential houses across the street on the other way. I just don't see how a tow lot impound site fits those categories.
Folks, this is Anna Jewett with the Solicitor's Office. I'm thinking perhaps this might be a good, since I think it's been a little while since you've had a conditional use application. This might be a good opportunity for me to just pipe in and talk a little bit about how they work, because I think that might aid you folks in making your recommendation tonight. Does that sound okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, so conditional uses are, kind of the next step up from what we have the uses that are permitted by right in a district. And that means they can just be administratively granted. Somebody submits an application to RJ. RJ takes a look and says, okay, checks all the boxes, stamps the form, you have your permit. Then you have your conditional uses and your special exceptions. The kind of the joke in the case law is that, they both are pretty much the same thing. One thing goes to council, one goes to the zoning hearing board. But, the special exceptions, the conditional uses, they're not special. They're not an exception. They are uses permitted by right in that district, so long as the applicant meets the specified criteria for that use. Now, typically, you're going to have a conditional use that has a set of enumerated criteria for that specific use. And the applicant has the burden, excuse me, of demonstrating, one, that they are the use that they're saying they are, and two, that they meet those use specific criteria. So for example, you'll have a hotel use and it'll say, okay, hotels can be granted if they meet these criteria. Here we have a slightly different situation where we have a conditional use that doesn't have any use specific criteria. So the fact that it's a conditional use in this district, and because there are no specific criteria to meet, there's a presumption that it is compliant with the public health, safety, and welfare. Now that's a burden, that's a presumption that can be overturned, but the burden on that is not on the applicant. The burden is going to be on any objectors to the application at the public hearing. So let me, sure.
Go ahead.
The question is, there are existing criteria for uses in that district, if permitted. And if the application doesn't meet those criteria, how is that applied?
So it gets a little bit sticky and it's not the easiest question, but typically the applicant is only going to have at the outset the obligation to show that he meets any use specific criteria. And again, here we don't have any. Now, I do suggest that you take a close look at all those general criteria because they're very important and they can absolutely be used in guiding how you place any conditions on this. But we have to be aware that typically the burden is going to be on any objectors to this application, if there are any before council when it goes to the public hearing, that many of those will be their burden of at least putting some evidence on that it does not comply, for example, with public health, safety, and welfare. So that is certainly a consideration you should always be keeping in the back of your heads. That is absolutely the goal of zoning. But it is something that is not necessarily grounds for a denial of the application on that alone. Now, if it comes up at the public hearing, or if there are objectors that I cannot see on Zoom that would like to show that this is not compliant with public health, safety, and welfare, that's another matter. But you do need to, just be aware of, what the objective criteria are. Those should be guiding your decision in your recommendation. But those other concerns that you're raising, for example, you were discussing some light issues, some buffering issues. Those are very much ideas that should absolutely be considered for recommended conditions of approval. And so that's something I want you to keep in your minds as well. But it is a little bit of a bizarre situation here where we have these shifting burdens and certain things that you're quote unquote allowed to consider when denying or recommending denial of an application, and certain things that are not necessarily permissible. So I do want to give you that framework just to provide it, and we can go over a little bit more of this in an executive session if you'd like. But these are just a framework to keep in mind as you're continuing to review this.
Well, if this is considered part of public welfare and something we have to consider, why isn't this under principal uses, civic and institutional uses that have public health and welfare items almost in every category? Medical, police, fire, EMS, hospital, small format, government facility.
Towing is not it's not a civic
Well,
use.
if we have to consider that as part of public welfare, then you could argue that the principal use should be under civic uses.
Let me clarify, because I think
Yeah,
there might have
clarify
I think there might have been either a misstatement on my part, or you might have slightly misunderstood me. So there are certain ideas of uses that are, your fire, fire departments, your ambulance services that might be a public service type use. I'm not talking about those. What I'm talking about is the general conditional use criteria that allows you to consider whether the use proposed is a detriment to the public health, safety, and welfare. We talk about zoning as, an effectuation of the municipality's police powers. And the police powers are those in the name of public health, safety, and welfare. So those are the ideas that you can consider, but it's not necessarily, I'm not suggesting that this is a quote public safety use. That would not be, I'm going to rely on RJ's interpretation here, but I do not believe that's appropriate. I think it's, it's suggested that it is a towing use under the warehouse. And my just suggestion is that, when you're considering the impact on public health, safety, and welfare, the impact on the neighborhood, those are the more general ideas that should guide your conditions of approval in this instance, as opposed to being necessarily your sole grounds for a denial. or a recommendation of denial.
Okay, I understand that the onus would be on us, but we have not raised a public welfare issue with Bronze Towing. What we raised is two items that, or at least what I raised is negatively affecting the desirable character of an existing residential neighborhood and altering the established character and use of that district. And I'm not sure, and with all due respect to what you do and the stuff you do, I'm not sure a towing operation or impound lot under that, this is,
It's not, let me rephrase that, it's not an impound lot. All right, it's literally a tow yard. An impound lot is whenever you impound cars and you keep them at a location more than 72 hours. That's an impound lot. I don't even have to take the truck cars off of my bed. When we tow them in, if it's a situation that's what you want, then we do it. We leave them on the bed. And when they come in the morning, they'll haul them out of there. We don't have to drop a single car on the ground. We can leave every car on a bed. Because the only time a car is dropped there is at night when there aren't enough drivers, that you can't pay enough drivers to sit there, just to sit there and do nothing. Well, what it is, and as for picking them up, it's the police that are calling us to pick them up. We only do it as a courtesy. We don't even contract with them. We don't contract with no police departments down here. And the reason that is, is when you contract with the police department, you have to have, there's a lot of different roles. Like in Greenville, we're contracted with the state police, the township police, every police department around. And the reason is we can handle that. When they call us for a wreck, when you have an intersection blocked, we have less than 15 minutes to be at that intersection from the time I get a phone call. At night, whenever they're calling all these tow yards that won't answer their phones, they call us just because they know that we have drivers around. Because we have guys that work 24 hours, like every shift. And we'll go pick it up for them to get the roadway cleared, get their mess cleaned up. As for dropping it there, we don't have to drop them. We have a yard that we don't drop no cars at. We never drop them there. It's where it's at, downtown Erie. We don't drop no cars. We take them to another yard. As for a burden on the public, these are all brand new trucks. I mean, our oldest truck is 3 years old. As an eyesore because of tow trucks, I don't know how to explain it. You have to have tow trucks. They're never going to go away. As for an eyesore, it's no different than a car lot with parked cars on.
Oh, it is.
oh,
They're wrecked.
No,
Sir, you say, when you bring them in, you leave them on the bed of the flatbed.
yep,
That's
we
not
can do it on
entirely
the bed or
correct.
we just won't haul
Well, you have had parked wrecked cars on that lot. When they come in on the back of a tow truck without a bed and they're on the hook or whatever that thing's, however that's called, if they are brought in that fashion, they will be dropped, I presume, on the lot in a wrecked or non-drivable condition. I know, I've seen them there. So
Okay.
that does happen, right?
them. Yes.
So there are some cars and there's some during the day. They're only there at night.
No, I'm saying they come in and then they're towed out. They can only
they
sit
come in,
there one
but-
day.
Okay, but I thought I heard you say earlier, they're only there at night, but if
Or
they're,
they come in through the night and then they get hauled out during the day. and
but
stuff
they're
like
also
that.
there during the day. Correct? I mean, I've seen them. so
They
I-
usually leave during the day, yeah.
Okay, but I'm just trying to clarify what
I guess
we're
I'm
gonna
just
see.
asking what you guys are looking for. Cause as for the conditions of like all the, I mean, I guess I should have came down a little more prepared. I mean, with a lawyer or something, cause the conditions there. They say we meet them all, we meet all the requirements
Who says you need one?
whenever they go through the lawyers. I mean, that's. So they
This-
get.
this is who's gonna say whether you're gonna-
What I'm asking is most of the time they tell us what we need to do or ask us what we have to do. Cause it was considered how do you say, the zoning's good for it, like that part of it, we just gotta figure out what we gotta do, I mean, do we gotta plant trees, fences? Fences I don't like. I mean, unless depending on what kind of fence you put, I'd rather put trees or something like that, just cause it looks better. And you just gotta replace them every few years because they do die off.
But see, we have I have a fundamental question with this.
Okay.
The attorney says the zoning is good.
Like I
But
said,
the-
I should
but
read
the
all the
two
requirements.
The two requirements that I've quoted, I'm not sure a tow operation satisfies those requirements. And that's where I am on this thing. I think there's serious questions in my mind of those two.
And it's, what are them saying then? That you don't meet what?
The requirement to be a conditional.
No, I'm saying, what are them two statements you're saying? And
This
how
was
they're
saying,
meet-
say, will not negatively affect the desirable character of existing residential neighborhood. We've a nice residential neighborhood right across the street from that. And will not alter the established character and use of that district in which is located. And given what's there, a tow truck in the middle of that just does not seem to meet that criteria J on page 14 of the conditions of the requirements for conditional use. That's what my argument is. We could talk tow truck, impound, we can talk how many wrecked cars are there, how many trucks are sitting in there during the day and night. All that is important, but it still doesn't meet those two in my mind.
How is it hindering community? That's what.
I
that
didn't say it's
said.
hindering the
No,
community.
what
I
that
said it changes the character of that neighborhood.
Changes-
have-
How's it change?
You
the
have
character?
residential, fairly high-end commercial, banking and a tow yard in the middle of that development. I just don't see a tow yard as being what being within the character of what's around it.
So,
And I may be the only one. I'm just saying it's hard.
Well,
for
I'm
me.
just trying to understand where.
I know,
how
it's
you're
hard for
seeing
me
it.
to get around seeing 8 or 10 or 12 trucks in that, in that place. Some wreck cars a day or whatever it is, given the other things around it. That's the issue that I have.
Maybe
And
next,
I'm wrestling with this.
maybe next we go to Shelley and then do like a round robin.
We
okay?
can.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, so though we've determined, I think it's been determined you need a conditional use to operate what you're already operating at this location. How long have you been in business at that location doing exactly what you're doing?
At that location,
Yeah,
I leased that building in June
so it's
of last
fairly,
year.
okay, so not a long time.
No,
Okay. Have you received complaints from the neighbors?
no,
Now, if I recall, because I actually used to live in that neighborhood. I believe your property abuts the residential properties that are end of one of the cul-de-sacs. Like-
Mm-mm.
No.
There's
Residential is
no
across-
there's no even residential. It's
So,
no residential literally kind of next to me, except for across and the closest resident is across the road on the side road. Across the street is no resident. Behind the bank is resident, but not across the street. Beside me is no residents.
okay. So. Okay. I get to where you are now. So. You have had no residential complaints.
No,
Have you had any complaints from other businesses?
no.
So. What, I guess I would just say is that, because I think I was clear before, I'm a big proponent of. I think under our towns, our comprehensive plan, that Perry Highway corridor was one of the focus areas to improve it. And I think, as you well know, there's been there's been a new sheet, there's a dialysis clinic, there's the bank that is adjacent, that.
Yeah, across the street.
Right, exactly. Is there anything, and I'm just asking you off, because it's kind of not committing you to anything, but is there anything that you can think of that would allow you to do the business as you're proposing to do it as a conditional use that could make your property more attractive, more in keeping with a corridor that this town might like to see improved.
What, like improving the upgrade on a building? Or
I'm really
like
not sure. I'm really, it's your building, it's
Well,
your
I'm
property.
asking, this is what I'm trying to see what you're saying. I mean, there's lots of things you can do to make the property look nicer. I mean, you can pave a lot, you can put nice shrubs up, you can put plants up. That part, like the corner, you can never plant nothing on that corner.
Right,
There's a driveway, like the crossing guard comes up and talks to our guys all the time. She parks right there. Cause we actually pulled 2 trees out. Last year, that were up onto that property. And the reason she asked us to pull them out was because naturally you couldn't see. Unless you went down further. So we pulled them 2 dead trees out. So, yeah, I mean, is what we did. There was 2 dead trees that was right behind where she parked. So we just pulled them out because then she said we could see better.
I agree, personally agree that, you know, it's not as if your business isn't a needed one.
Right.
Especially the way people drive today. But I don't think that the property as it currently exists is particularly attractive. And I don't think we can impose aesthetic requirements on a
Yeah, 'cause I
conditional
don't
use,
know.
but we can
I
certainly
mean,
make.
I don't know.
But you could, I'm quite sure that your landlord would not object to you improving the
No,
property.
like I
either.
said, if that's what you're talking, like planting shrubs and stuff, he wouldn't object to none of that. I mean, we
Well,
went in, we
I'm
took
just
the
throwing that
signs,
out as
they
a,
had light poles there that were coming down. We went in, and took all the light poles down that were coming down, because they're not needed. I mean, they're really not.
so it
Uh,
could. RJ, I just have one last question. So. And you may have said this and it didn't register, but how did the need for a conditional use for a business that's been operating since June come to your attention?
Yeah, so,
Cause I didn't file for an occupancy permit.
Hmm?
Cause I didn't file for an occupancy permit.
yeah, so
before June-
there were a couple people that had inquired as to whether something had moved into that building because they had seen like a tow truck, you know, a couple different cars parked there when it had been empty for a
Not
while.
complaints, but just inquiries or complaints?
I guess I would characterize it as an inquiry, but you know, I don't
People
know
are
whether
hoping
they
for
would want
something
it to
different.
complain.
Okay, I
don't-
gotcha.
I don't know. It was just, the question was just raised, hey, did something come in there and is that something that was approved? You know, and
Yeah.
we checked and we said, oh, we haven't done any business occupancy for that anytime recently. And so, you know, we've reached out and identified the correct process forward.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Ian, you have something?
Yeah, just, Mr. Brown, you've stated a couple of times that you're more than willing to add additional screening on the Hillview Lane side to plantings to
Sure.
make
Yeah.
sure that there isn't any impact on the adjoining residential. And that you park your vehicles, if I can just make sure I understand, they're parked on the north and the south property line, more or less behind the building
Not
line?
behind it.
No, so the building line to the street, are the vehicles sitting in front of the face of the building?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There's actually, if you looked over on look there, if you would look down if you're looking at the building.
Mhm.
Down the left side of it, there's actually parking spaces.
Yep,
Down the left side, so they're
Right.
parking them parking spaces. On the right side of the building, they back in,
right,
and the reason they back in is,
for the lights, yes.
right, for the
We're doing
lights.
But
And
there,
And the
then
front of
at
the
night-
buildings, north, they're parking north-south.
well, but that's what I'm asking. If they're parking on the north and the south property lines,
Yes.
and there's potentially 12 vehicles assigned to this
Yeah,
site, whether
they-
they're all
right,
there
yes.
at every period or not. theoretically, that's 6 or 8 per side. And is there a potential that they can more or less be parked in a way that would keep them behind the face of the building? Let me show you what, so the. Roger, do you have a?
No,
the
there-
drawing?
You could
There's
keep them
not any.
behind you could keep them behind the light pole in the middle of the middle of the property, but that's as far as you're gonna keep them.
The middle of the property, where
Like,
there
for the
used to
tow
be
truck.
like a canopy or something there, there's a foundation. I
Uh,
couldn't-
I don't know what, it's literally a light post.
I think it's this
Right there.
thing here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, do you have,
The only vehicles that park anywhere near the street are pickups, vans. We have, just in that area, we have five of the vehicles are just straight up, they're just straight service vehicles. They all park at the end of the,
yeah, again, on those north or south?
on the
property
north side.
boundaries?
They all park at the end on the north
Okay.
side.
All right. And as far as you know, if you've been operating since June, and the crossing guard is there every school day, and the line of buses that comes down
Yeah, goes a
Hillview.
lot.
Have anyone raised any concerns about the site distance for those buses to make the turn to go north on Perry Highway?
Cause nothing's parked on
You don't park that far in.
the south side. We're
towards the
not
right.
even anywhere near any of that over there. And if you go to the north side, the first parking spot, you'll see, if you would look at it, there's like 20 parking spots back to the building. And they're all in a parking spot going back. And the vans and the pickup trucks sit out front. Cause you wouldn't hinder any like sighting off that road at all.
And if you did have disabled vehicles that aren't on your trucks that would be left there
They sit
overnight,
on the south side.
you would put them on the south
They
side
actually-
behind the screening?
The south side behind them, but they sit behind the building, like literally
Yeah.
from the building back.
But,
And then
right to the
It's
resident,
next to the building.
right on the side where the residential houses are on the, across the street.
Where,
That'd be on that side. That'd be, if you're looking at the thing, that the building,
Yep.
it would be on the right side of the building.
Yep.
Right up where from where the security guard parks their car,
Right.
that side.
And I'm looking at the potential of that being
And
screened
that's where the
as
shrubs
a
are.
condition.
We like, when we got there, there's a lot of shrubs there, but not really shrubs, it was branches.
Yeah.
Like there's still shrubs there
Yeah,
that still need to
that's
go
on
out
the
because they're not there. I mean, I don't consider a shrub halfway dead
Yes.
because of any side of
Yeah.
blocking anything.
Is that what it is?
I think
It
so.
looked like there was something.
I think in.
It's
There must be the light pole.
I think
break
It's
that I
literally,
saw.
it's light, it's a light pole.
It's a light
Yeah.
bulb, and I think there's like
Yeah.
a concrete pad.
Yeah, it's all, the whole front of that's
But I
concrete.
was-
It looks like it was a former gas station. at some
Yeah,
point.
There was a canopy.
It
that was
is.
On the front of it at
Yeah.
one point.
Yeah,
for
one time
years.
it was a gas station.
Yeah. So, my concerns were related to screening for the residential property, parking the vehicles, the commercial vehicles, which are the ones that have Brown's towing on them,
Yes.
okay? In such a manner that they're parked far enough back from the road to meet the requirements that they not be parked in the front yard setback, which is part of a regular use for this district. And that there's no sight distance issue for buses, particularly, I guess they sit up higher. The buses leaving Hillview, traveling north on, Perry Highway, given the fact that rightly or wrongly, we have no specific criteria for this conditional use in the zoning. If those,
Why do you say we have no?
there are no
specific-
specific criteria for the use has been explained. It is only defined.
There were a handful of uses like this through the code.
Yeah.
That basically, there was no particular performance standard that anyone wanted to impose,
Right.
but they were uses that could fall into the bucket of what somebody might consider to be an objectionable
Right.
use. And so they were slotted into the conditional use,
Right.
category to give the opportunity to have this conversation.
So what I'm saying, is that like for the junkyard, it says a minimum 5 acres. There is no such requirement for this use in the zoning.
Yeah, and that's the question I
Right.
asked before. Why is there a specific for that and not for this?
Because. that's
And
the
and
way
my other
it's
question is,
That's what we're working with right now.
we still got two requirements that should be looked at in that two requirements that I cited. If you're looking at conditional use, those are the requirements on page 14 of our zoning.
And the guidance that the solicitor's office gave us is that the fact that it is a conditional use and has no specific criteria, it's our burden to document how those criteria are not met. From my perspective, I'm just saying, if the property can be screened, if the parking can be, the commercial vehicles can be parked behind the light fixture on the north and the south property line, and if there is no, any impounded vehicles, wrong term, sorry, any disabled vehicles are on the property for a day or less and are parked basically shielded by the building and the screening that we would be requesting, then I believe the criteria has.
Well, Ann, let me ask you, would you say that this does not alter the established character of that district and that area?
I have to say, because we made it a conditional use permissible in the districts, that it doesn't. Given the other uses that are permitted in the district, I'm having a hard time getting there. Because we permit junkyards, because we permit heavy industry and light industry.
Where do we have?
Those are what
Where do we
are
have
permitted.
Permitted, though.
On page 131, the principal permitted uses in the MC district include light industry, heavy industry, junkyards, outdoor storage yards, and warehouse distribution. So that is what, in my thinking, that is what the town selected as the character for this district.
There were no distinctly industrialized areas in the old map
Yeah.
to make distinctly industrial in this. However, a lot of the property around the corridors, so the ones that were very car oriented, that didn't have a lot of opportunity to turn into a highly pedestrian oriented area. Those were what were selected for the mixed use corridor district, because we have to zone these uses
Somewhere.
So this is the one that is the most car oriented, the most intensive in terms of the types of uses that are allowed.
So I'm just, I understand your.
No, I understand your point.
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah.
I can't get there. That's fine.
That's why there's 7 of us
Yeah,
on this
that's right.
body.
John?
Really just a comment, not any questions, but I don't necessarily disagree with the comments and concerns that have been raised, but I kind of am agreeing with Ann that I think those comments and concerns are more with the ordinance and more with, maybe we don't want to have all of the, the warehouse uses because of the aesthetic impacts of some of those uses. But as the ordinance is written and as the conditional use allows, I don't necessarily see with good standing how we could deny this particular application. Now, that being said, if we wanted to have a kind of a separate discussion later on about amending
Putting some
the
special
ordinance, to
conditions,
put
yeah.
some conditions on or remove some of these uses that maybe we, in hindsight would not have, wanted to support.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, we can't do that.
Right.
No, I mean,
Not now.
no, not now, but I'm saying to remove this use entirely from the zoning code, therefore makes the entire town available as a special exception application for its use.
But
Additional requirements.
we can have
for that
specific
use.
requirements on it saying maybe
Yeah.
it needs to be a larger lot.
Right.
Than this particular lot. So you can park the vehicles differently and you can screen it better.
So I think that the comments and concerns that have been brought up are important for that kind of discussion. Just not for tonight, and I don't think for this particular application. So that's fine.
Would you be amenable though to the conditions that we're
Yes,
talking about?
yes.
Couple questions and then a couple comments. So, and explain this to me like I'm a complete moron when it comes to tow trucks, because I am. So it's middle of the night, there's a wreck somewhere, one of your trucks gets the vehicle in whatever condition it is.
Yes,
And it theoretically, I'm saying it will here, but it could drive it back to this lot,
yes,
stays on the flatbed.
yes.
What happens with that driver? Does that
He
driver
goes to
pick up
another
another truck that
Yes, it
stays
just gets
there?
in another truck.
So generally, how many trucks would you have staged overnight for someone to pick up at a location like this? Whether it's
How
from the
many-
truck or someone driving it in a personal vehicle,
They have 5 trucks that sit there that are permanently there.
like
5 tow
based
trucks.
there or?
Yes, they have
ever-
5 tow trucks that are based there. They have 5 service vehicles based there. Any of the other trucks, them 5 trucks are always there.
When you say
unless-
always there,
Like
like on.
whenever
duty
they
or-
on duty, like they're
So-
always available.
Well,
what
always
it
there
is.
could mean they don't have wheels.
No, it's just,
No, they, when they come in, they have, the guys come in the morning. As they go off shift, during the day. On a Monday, we'll just say Monday's the easiest day, you have 15 drivers there. Is what you have,
At once or,
all day long.
so that'd be for the whole shift, 24 hours.
No,
15.
yeah, no, that's during the day, you have 15 drivers.
What's it? Back up a little bit, because you're a
We
24-hour
have-
business.
We, all right, we have guys that come in at 6 o'clock. And they get off at 4 o'clock, and then we
How
have
many of
guys,
those guys are there?
1. And then 7 o'clock, a guy comes in, there's 2 of them. 8 o'clock, a guy comes in,
so you're staggered.
9 o'clock, a guy comes in, 11 o'clock, a guy comes in. And they all work, it's a staggered shift. So you have you're busy in the morning and at 5 o'clock. Is what you're busy. Like always busy, them are your busy times. As it slows down, the guys go home. As the late day goes later, we have a guy that comes in at 4 o'clock. He works till 2 o'clock. We have a guy that comes at 6 o'clock. He works till 4 o'clock. I have a guy that comes in at 10 o'clock and works till 7 o'clock.
So we'll say there's a guy that comes in at 6 a.m. So
He's
he
gone at
shifts
4
hours.
o'clock. He'll leave, he'll come
He
back.
drives his personal vehicle.
Yep.
Here, picks up a truck, does his shift,
Yep,
drops that truck back.
yes.
He leaves, and then someone else coming in takes that
A
truck.
4
behind
o'clock
him.
guy will take that truck and go.
So it's not a situation where someone would take the truck home with them after the shift.
I'm not saying nobody ever has.
It's not a typical. thing.
No,
They
because
come
we've
back
had
on
guys,
the
their
base.
car broke down and say, hey, I need, can I take your truck home, do I get back or whatever, yeah. As for, yeah, they sit there. And then even like Washington, or like I said, most of our drivers come out of Green Bay. We have permanent drivers in every location. But what that's for is a permanent, like on a Tuesday, or we'll say Wednesday. Wednesday's perfect. Cause you're only using them 5 or 6 guys. You don't need no extra guys to cover everything, cause there's just not enough work there. Like a Friday, a Monday, a Tuesday, a Sunday afternoon. Them are the days that you need them extra guys, so then they live, like I have guys that live in Newcastle. Guys that live in Grove City. Guys that live in Greenville, we have guys that live pretty much from Lake Erie all the way to West Virginia. And they have trucks at all the locations. They go to a location, they get a truck wherever their assigned truck is, and they go to work. Wherever they're scheduled that day, whether it's here, Washington, Erie. We have guys that. We have 12 extra guys. Out of Greenville that just go wherever there's help needed. Because their actual job is to leave. Like they run storms, we leave every year. We just got back from Massachusetts, we were out in.
Can we just focus
Michigan.
on this location?
Yes.
It's interesting, but
But I'm saying that's what we do is we bring guys in. So as for trucks sitting there, there's 5.
So
A guy
at a
at
given
midnight
time, there
time.
can be 5 gentlemen sitting inside the building waiting for a call.
There could be, yes.
Okay.
Is there any overnight accommodations planned in that building?
No.
If it's really slow and,
No.
Okay.
They have to stay awake.
the bringing disabled vehicles back, you said that's not necessarily a deal breaker?
No. Literally, I don't have to bring them back.
Where would you take?
Greenville. Washington, Elwood
The,
City. A lot of our vehicles, when a wreck happens, like you'll get a call, Erie will call us. They're fast. Like if a wreck happens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there's times we'll get a call at 7 o'clock. State Farm, they'll call us by 7 o'clock. Hey, can you take that vehicle to Elwood City? Because what Elwood City is it's a big salvage yard. And all the insurance companies have all these adjusters that go to that yard. So we tow a lot of vehicles there from our place. Just because they'll just send the adjusters that go there daily. So then you gotta send it to a garage.
so, in the grand scheme of things, we just passed an ordinance. And it doesn't look like tow or impound lot is defined in the ordinance, but you run tow trucks and it's a conditional use. So I don't see a reason to say that your tow lot is not something that we just contemplated allowing in this district. I agree with the concerns that have been raised for potential conditions like screening, things like that. I think the other thing that or 2 things I'm interested in, when your vehicles go in, park, do they always make a beeping noise to back up?
Yes,
I assume they make
They
that,
have
you
to.
can't turn that off,
no,
right?
that's law.
So like at 3 AM when tow trucks are backing up is my concern if people nearby would hear that and say, well, I don't like the constant noise of that. There's not a way to disable it.
It's not, you ain't allowed.
Is there a flow around the site that could be used to minimize the backing up?
Yeah, you could pull in and pull out. Like the guys at night, a lot of them, if you go there tonight, you're gonna see the truck probably parked right across the lot in front of the building.
In front of the front door.
And he's gonna pull in and he's just gonna pull out.
So he's in front of the front door between that
That
hole that
post.
we described
Yeah,
and the front door.
yeah, the
And
building.
he's parked parallel to the
building.
building. Yeah,
Oh,
I've seen,
that's when I drove by.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
where I've
they'll
seen it
pull up.
mainly. And it frankly was idling, ready to go.
Yeah, and then they'll pull out and they'll go.
Right.
So
So they're not backed in on the side that was described. Always.
I would ideally like to see some type of greater specificity in a site plan for this site.
Site plan for,
That shows parking spots or it shows
A drawing.
drawing, where our vehicle's gonna be parked. Because we had the images up earlier from the summer. And, you said that when your guys are out waiting for the next wreck or disabled vehicle, they're staging somewhere. And I've seen them at different places as well. But the idea here would be to differentiate this particular site from somewhere where there's just a tow truck or 2 parked because it's an abandoned lot that they're waiting to go somewhere else. Now, to make it look like it's actually your place of business and the tow trucks are supposed to be there, and it's not just some
I understand
abandoned
what you're
place that,
saying.
a couple trucks are parked in while guys, have
Yeah,
a
that,
direct
I
exit
understand
off.
that part.
So I would like some more specificity on that, so we have an idea of what it would look like. And that there's defined places, so that people say, hey, look. That's a tow lot, there's, new well-maintained vehicles, it's a use we gotta have. And it's not just a staging area to wait for the next call that I don't know if that's Brown's towing or not. Whether we can do that, I don't know, but that would help me. And the commission get a better idea of exactly where things are in geographic reference to the building, the north, south. But But, as to the overall use, it's in our ordinance, and we just did the ordinance, so I can't find a way to say no, rather than try to make it the best way we can.
Well, that's why it's a conditional use. We can impose conditions. The letter that you sent in, are you familiar with this letter?
Yeah.
Okay, did you write that or did you?
Well, my wife would have waited or the girl in the office would have.
Okay. It says quite specifically, it is currently being used as office space for employees. What office work are you doing in that building?
That's where they go. That's where they.
What office work? It's not a staging area or sitting there waiting for a call out.
Office space, like. That's where they have their meetings. I'm not real sure.
How many desks are in there?
3.
And how many? So if the other people can't be sitting down and doing quote unquote office work.
No, I'm saying they have 3 desks in there. I mean, that's where they do just their paperwork, drop it.
I would respectfully say that it's not being used as office space. As most people would envision office space.
Okay,
It says the property is also being used to park our trucks when they are not being operated. Well, in fact, they're parking there while they're being operated, while they're waiting to go out for a call. It's not as if this is a lot where they're parked because they're not being used. They all are being used. You
yeah,
said,
they're all being used.
okay, so the fact that this says the property is also being used to park our trucks when they are not being operated is not exactly correct either.
Well, they're parked there when they're not operated too. I mean, they're parked there, they go in and out of there all the time.
Okay,
I think his term on operated is on call as opposed to,
okay. I have my concerns about the operation in that location. Unfortunately, our district is so broadly defined that you could have virtually anything go on there, and that's something that we have to wrestle with. And those are the conditions that we will ask to be put on, and I suspect we'll have to agree to those, whatever they might be. So, any other comments?
Did we keep Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Have you even seen this property? You might not have even seen it since you've been on the.
Oh, no, I'm very familiar with it. Actually, my wife and I, we use Westview Bank. Hope that's not a unpaid political plug. But we see the activity across the street and noticed it. But I guess that, my only, real comment, I agree. I think procedurally we're somewhat, we don't really have many options, but just listening to the discussion, the key, I think, to this purpose use here is you want to have a good neighbor. And I think the things we're talking about with, an organized site, having it clean, and I like to, it sounds like that's being done, cutting the trees down for that neighbor to help in the safety. And I think that's really encouraging. And I'm a long ways away here, but just really pleased to hear that. And the motivation again to be a good neighbor. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
just one question, Mr. Brown,
Sure.
would you be willing to create a plan that we could look at that would show where the parking would be located?
No, but if you want to sit down with me and go over it, I would be more than willing to do any of that. You want trees planted, you tell me where you want to plant it, I'd be more obliged to do that. I mean, you can call Hempfield Township, talk to Todd Hiddle, he's the township supervisor there. He can tell you what we do for the towns. I mean, we're not opposed to, we do whatever it takes to help. We don't try to be a burden on nobody. I mean, if you could talk to these people, I mean, I can give you plenty names, the police departments. You talk to all of them, and then you can talk to Erie. Any location we have, you can talk to the townships, and I guarantee you won't hear nothing bad about me. I try my best, I treat my employees right. I do my best by the town. I mean, we help all the towns out that we're in. I don't have more to say. As for drawing it up, I don't know what you want drawn up. I mean, as for parking, I have employees. I can tell you every day to park your car like this. I can tell you that you go out back, you have lines, and you can tell people to park in them lines, and they're still not always going to do it. So as for me saying I can guarantee that a truck won't be parked sideways on the lot, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't guarantee it. I can't monitor 24/7. I'm not a person to write up. Will I come and say something to you? Guaranteed. Eventually will it matter? Guaranteed it will. As for what you would like to see, if you came to me and said, could you do this? I guarantee I could do that part. And I wouldn't have a problem with it. And like I said, if you guys want names of people to talk to, like the township, they came down to us. We don't have to, where we're at, our main yard, it's a commercial yard. Like we're commercial industry there. We don't have to do, we don't have no rules. But we keep rules with the township that we try to do everything to make it to where it's a better place to be, see. Like they were junkyards. And we went in and got rid of everything on these junkyards to make it a better place, and we cleaned them up. The fields are all grass. We don't have just dirt laying around no more, just because it looks better. Erie, we put up
Again,
walls.
sir, I know you have a widespread operation. We're looking at this lot.
And I'm talking to you about this lot. If you came to me and asked me to do something, I would do it.
Okay, but
If you wanted
telling
to
us if
have
you
a
had fields
conversation,
and other grass doesn't
if
exist.
you
in
want
this
to
lot.
come in and have a conversation with me and say, could we try this
Well,
or do that?
Procedurally, should we, I think it's backwards, candidly, that we have to give him what it is we want to see from him, but can we do that? And,
That's this.
Yeah.
Right.
okay,
Proceeding.
okay, well, we've told him what we want to see, and he says he can't do it. He can't, he
No,
wants.
he wants, you want to see, I can draw a piece of parking lots on a piece of
Okay,
paper, but what
can
I'm saying,
you give us a filtering, buffering plan for the
I already
trees
told her I could put trees up,
according to our requirements?
like as for,
I think what they're asking is if you can work with a site design professional to prepare information.
I don't even know what a site design professional is.
You may have to learn.
All right,
The
but that's what
person
I'm
that knows
asking.
what we're asking.
I
person
mean,
that
I
knows-
can tell you about towing, you're asking me about stuff that and I'm asking. and
You're
that's
asking
why I
to
keep
operate a
asking.
business. It's a towing business, and you understand towing, but
Right,
these are the requirements that any business operator owner has to comply with. And we're asking you to do that. And I can understand that you might not know what they are, but unfortunately, I think you're gonna have to get aware of them in order to be able to comply with and satisfy the things that we've been saying. Now,
RJ, you
we-
have a list of
We can,
professionals.
well, I think we
area
can give them a
you
list.
We do not make recommendations.
No, not a recommendation, just a list.
I mean, what do they do? They come in and just draw like where you're gonna put every tree or? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where the parking spaces will
Where the
go
parking
and where
space
the
is,
disabled
you know,
vehicles.
a layout like the gentleman that we're here in front of you. There's a whole layout as to where the buildings are gonna go, what's gonna happen, where the streets are, in your case, where the parking would be, where the plantings will be.
I can tell you types of professionals who do work like this, for example, surveyors, landscape architects, engineers, although that's probably more involved than necessarily what you need for this site. Probably a landscape architect is the closest to what they're asking about.
Landscape architect would understand our buffering requirements and be able to draw a plan
okay,
for that.
Yes.
So, I would suggest that we either table this, which seems to be the most logical thing to do. We're gonna table your application because all of these questions are unanswered and have to be resolved to our satisfaction before we would agree to approve it or deny it. I suggest that you get a hold of a landscape architect or someone. You mentioned attorneys that you have before, ask them who they might recommend you go to.
okay.
And then let's see what you can present to us at the next meeting. I suspect he could ask questions in the meantime to you.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to make it too terribly difficult, but we've seen nothing. And we are used to seeing plans presented so that
But
we
they
can
never said
agree and
they needed
approve.
a plan, said in there that I didn't. That's why, when I come down and I was here 3 different times and talked to a couple different people. And they said, this is what I have to do.
Yeah, so.
So I understand, I'll get a plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have a problem doing it.
This is something that clearly has evolved from their discussion of the general conditional use requirements. So yes, it was not required to establish a submittal, but that's how they're asking for
Okay.
more information. So,
And then if it's on a plan, it documents what you say, you know what I mean? So then it's something we can review and then we can be satisfied that the conditions that we're looking for, you're gonna provide.
Okay.
Gonna be-
We need a motion to table it or?
Anything
that would be
else?
the-
Like signs or anything?
Sorry, what?
You want signs and everything? You will, like, as,
You mean like for your business?
yeah,
Sign?
like,
Yeah.
pretty much you're asking me to take that property and draw it
Yeah,
to look like what it would look like.
I mean, you could.
So I'm
you
saying
could
you
include the
put
sign.
this, include the signs and everything
Those-
all at one time?
The signs specifically are generally approved through the, just an administrative.
Yeah, but I'm saying if I did it,
So-
to just do it all now.
You can, yes. That would probably make sense.
All right.
Okay,
All right, so we need a motion to table this until the next meeting, or whenever it is you.
When
Yeah.
is, I'll get it as fast as
yeah, so
possible.
April 2nd is the next meeting, but feel free to turn anything in ahead of that and have me take a look at it to
That's fine.
see if it's kind of hitting what.
We have meetings the first Tuesday of every month.
Yes.
Okay.
Does she get a copy of the minutes for being,
We won't have minutes approved until next month.
So we need a motion to
I'll
table.
motion to table.
Online.
Al is, the motion to table. Second? Shelley seconds. All in favor of tabling this issue?
I,
Aye. Opposed? All right. All right, Mr. Brown, sorry that this is more than you bargained for, but hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it.
All right,
thank you for your
thank
time.
you.
Thank you. All right, we have one more item, and that's the approval of the February 6, 2024 minutes. Any edits, changes, comments on the minutes? None? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? John moved
I'll second.
and seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're approved. We have on the agenda any general public comment.
Oh, good.
My name
Do I
is,
need to start the timer? Yes.
my name is Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, PA, 15101. I've heard multiple times that the new zoning code was passed, knowing things would need to be changed. Is the Sisters of Divine Providence one of these exceptions? At town council, I heard at least once, and I've read it, this phrase, that the old, let's see, maybe I need glasses, that the existing property was zoned institutional in the old code, and the town did not want to try to predetermine what it could become if sold. However, the town was aware that the sisters were marketing the property and that a rezoning application was a possibility in the future. Great. That's the procedure. How is this possible that the property owner gets to determine their zoning designation? So for example, I live in a residential district, but you know what? I want to sell coffee out of my home. So I just come to the zoning, come to planning commission and let you know, and then you're going to rezone it. It sounds ridiculous. And that's what it appears has happened with the changing of the zoning for the Divine Providence. I struggle with the fact that the code was passed, knowing that exceptions would be needed. And yet those exceptions were not made public prior to the passing of the code. So that is my concern with the new zoning code. This particular piece that comes out, I have many concerns with the process, but I just didn't know that I could come to planning commission and say, look, I want my property rezoned because I want to do something else with it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
To be clear, any property owner has the right at any time to submit a rezoning request, and we are required to hear it. Just so everybody knows.
All right, anything else? Any other comments? All right, I think we're ready to adjourn. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Seconded from Sean. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. It's good to. see
Thank
all.
you.
Good night.
Get some sleep, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy.